Hello?
Hi, Rob.
Right, just making sure the thing's working for me.
Ryan, you do have quorum, but you might want to wait just like another minute or two for, as two more folks just jumped on.
Let me know when the folks that we expect have arrived.
Ryan, I think you can go ahead and get started.
Alrighty. I will go ahead and get started then. Let me just get to the right place. So good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us this Fair Monday. With the quorum present, the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care Board meeting is now called to order. A few housekeeping announcements. Please remember to mute when you are not speaking to create a positive environment for everyone. Board members, please do not use the chat function as the audience watching cannot see it. Before we continue, I will ask Katie to proceed with a roll call. Please indicate you are here and the organization that you are with after Katie calls your name.
Sorry, I'm going to take myself off mute. Latisha Brown Gambino.
Present.
Jacqueline Sorry. Jacqueline Cable. Eric Cole.
Present, Arizona State University.
Liz DaCosta. Marshall Franklin.
Present. City of Phoenix.
Todd Gary. Lisa Glow.
Present, Central Arizona Shelter Services.
Chris Hallett.
And City of Peoria Neighborhood and Human Services.
Rob Poblogger.
Present, Valley of the Sun United Way.
Joan Service.
Present, Arizona Housing Coalition.
Charles Sullivan,
Present, Arizona Behavioral Health Corporation.
Jackie Taylor,
Present, Save the Family.
Danielle Wright,
Present, Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence.
Chair Ryan Balch.
Present. So thanks, everyone. Before we move on to the call to the audience today, I would like to just acknowledge our 5 new board members. And new board members, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but this is the first time that our audience has been able to see and hear from you. So I'm just going to call your name, and if you wouldn't mind just again stating who you are and where you work and just a little bit about yourself to give the audience an idea of their new representatives, I think that would be fabulous. So I'll go ahead and start with Latisha Brown Gambino.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Latisha Brown Gambino. I'm from UMOM. I'm their new Chief Program Officer. Been on board for just about 11 months. I'm originally from Connecticut, have worked in that homeless service system for close to 20 years before I came out to Arizona. So I'm very happy to be here and very happy to be part of the COC board.
Thank you so much, Latisha. That's really helpful and enlightening. Jacqueline Campbell. Oh, Jacqueline not with us yet, Katie?
No, she's not.
She's not. Okay, we'll skip her for now. Lisa Glow.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Glow. I'm the CEO at Central Arizona Shelter Services. I've been here about 4.5 years. It's really flown by. And I'm honored to be serving on this board, hopefully bringing some of the skills to the table that may be needed in the government and public policy arenas, which I have a pretty deep background in, having worked in state government, policy, law, and nonprofit, and looking forward to making progress with all of you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Glad you could join us. Rob, I might mess this up, Podlagar, is that correct?
Sorry about that, I was double muted. Podlager, but I usually go by whatever is said. So happy to be here today. Rob Podlager, Valley of the Sun United Way. I am the Chief Community Development and Engagement Officer, new to the Valley after about 15 months of just moving here from Ohio. Where previously I was the CEO of the SEMER Institute, which is a national foundation that is focused specifically on homelessness prevention. And I did that work through 50 of the largest United Ways from throughout the country. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. And Danielle Wright.
Hi, I'm Danielle Wright. I'm with the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence. I'm the Victim Services Manager there. I've been there 4 years. Prior to that, I was at UMOM for 4 years as the Domestic Violence Program Manager, and then spent 8 years at UMOM as Emergency Case Manager, Transitional Housing Coordinator, and Emergency Shelter Coordinator.
Thank you so much. And I also see that Jacqueline Campbell has joined us. Jacqueline, I was just asking new board members if they would just state their name and where they're from and a little bit about themselves to introduce themselves to our membership.
Hello, hi, my name's Jacqueline. I am the Director of Behavioral Health with US Vets. And I am new to US Vets since October, but much of my experience is working with youth and adolescents and working in correctional health and just continuing to work with them and finding wraparound services within the community and identifying new resources. So I'm super excited to be on the board and part of this team.
Well, we're super excited to have you, Jacqueline, and to have everybody. As you can all see, it's a very strong new group of board members. So we're very excited to continue on. Did I miss something? Was there something someone? Nope. Okay. Thought I heard something there. All right, then we are going to move on to the call to the audience. Members of the public were given an opportunity to submit written comments relating to this meeting to azmag.gov/comment within 1 hour of the posted start time of the meeting. In addition, members of the public were given the opportunity to join the Zoom meeting either by requesting the link from MAG staff or by registering on the COC board meeting event page. If you are wishing to make a comment, please raise your hand in Zoom and you will be invited to unmute at that time. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. MAG staff, were there any comments received or anyone who has joined the call to offer comments at this time?
Madam Chair, no comments were received and no one in the audience has raised their hand at this time.
Okay, thanks so much, Katie. And audience, we really do encourage your participation. We don't like being this far removed from you, so please feel free to follow those instructions and chime in when appropriate. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is approval of the January 10th, 2022 meeting minutes. Does any member of the board have questions or comments on the minutes? I don't see any. Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the January 10th, 2022 Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care Board meeting minutes?
This is Chris. I'll move.
Thank you, Chris. Can I have a second?
Jackie, second.
Hi, Jackie. Thank you. Second. So we have a first from Chris and a second from Jackie. Is there discussion of this motion? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I will ask Katie to proceed with the roll call. Please indicate clearly how you vote, stating yay or nay after your name is called.
Latisha Brown Gambino.
Yay.
Jacqueline Campbell. Jacqueline, you are on mute. We're trying this one. Eric Cole.
Aye.
Elizabeth DaCosta.
Yay.
Marshall Franklin.
Aye.
Todd Gary. Lisa Glow.
Aye.
Chris Howlett. Rob Podlager.
I'm actually going to abstain since I wasn't participating in the last meeting.
Joan Service.
Aye.
Charles Sullivan.
Aye.
Jackie Taylor.
Aye.
Danielle Wright.
Yay.
Chair Ryan Balch.
Aye.
Jacqueline Campbell.
Aye. I'm sorry, I'm having technical problems. I put it in the chat, but aye.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It passes unanimously with 1 abstention.
Perfect. Thank you, Katie and board members. So the next agenda item will be updates. Chairs of committees with recent activity will be asked to share highlights with us. We will be moving to a written update with a memo in the board packet with high-level verbal updates during this meeting. So first today, we will hear a legislative update from Joan Service with the Arizona Housing Coalition. Hi, Joan.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. So today is the 22nd day of the session, or the 375th day of January, as I like to call it. So with the 22nd day of session, there's been about 1,300 bills introduced so far. So it's a lot, but ultimately the Housing Coalition views each and every bill through the lens of how does it provide access to healthcare, a livable wage, and affordable housing. Hopefully you guys can hear me. There's work being done in my backyard. So just a quick update on the policy priorities that the Housing Coalition is representing at the state legislature. Again, we are, if anybody's heard from me before, you've heard that we are looking to increase resources from the state level to address housing and homelessness. And one of those policy levers is the State Housing Trust Fund. We're hoping to secure that through one of 2 different paths, one being a budget conversation. The second potential vehicle would be through what we anticipate being a rather large, comprehensive zoning reform legislation that should be introduced sometime this week, because there is a bill deadline of lawmakers that they can't introduce any more bills after a certain point. So we expect to see that fairly soon. We anticipate this is going to be a rather comprehensive legislation that actually stems from some stakeholder meetings that occurred before session started around, affordable housing development and our local municipalities. And some of that, those healthy conversations basically said we need some state level direction. And so that's what that legislation might look like. We also anticipate one of those conversations would be, how can we increase some resources at the state level, knowing that we have seen a large influx of federal resources to address housing and homelessness. So we're watching that ever closely. The other thing that the Housing Coalition is taking on is working alongside our friends at Vitalist as we look to adopt a legislative change to allow teacherages to occur on, which already exist on rural, are already allowable on rural and tribal lands, but would now be expanded for urban lands. And basically what teacherages are, or is, or see, I need to go back to school. Whatever the pronoun is teacherages would allow for student or school-owned land, would allow for housing on student-owned, school-owned land. This is actually currently in practice in Vail, Tucson, or the Tucson area. They allow for small, tiny homes, affordable housing in the Vail School District. It would also allow for, and it's not just for teachers, it would also allow for affordable housing for some of the professionals working in school districts, like the cafeteria workers, the janitors, the personal assistants on staff. So it is, an innovative option that, again, Vitalist is leading the significant charge on, and we're just helping out with that legislative fix. That bill, it's House Bill 2606, and we do anticipate that it'll be heard next week, we believe, in House Ways and Means, and we'll update our membership soon after that's confirmed. And again, we are watching all of the bills. There are, a handful of, well, actually more than a handful, about 50 or 60 bills that we have on our monitoring list that either look at new resources, or unfortunately some diversion of existing resources away from or prioritizing populations. And so ultimately our big mantra is, how can we increase the funding and attention to our housing challenges in our state. So with that, happy to entertain any questions or comments, and hopefully you guys can hear me. It's so loud here.
Great, thanks so much, Joan. Is there any questions from the board? I probably should have said Joan, are there any questions from the board? Okay, any from the audience? I don't know who would be able to see that, Magsta?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks so much, Joan. Thanks so much for that information, and we'll be counting on you to keep us all up to date. Sounds like some exciting stuff this session, actually. All right. Next, we're going to turn to the data subcommittee, which is opening membership. This update was included in the board packet and an email was sent out. The application closes on February 14th. So actually, I guess we're not talking to the data subcommittee, but I'm letting you know that the data subcommittee, I know I saw the email, is looking for new members. That's a very important subcommittee of our board, because it really keeps tabs on how we're collecting data, how the systems are working, what direction we're going in terms, looking at our data and what direction we should be going from there. So it's a very specific content area, and we're looking for members who think they have something to add to that. And if the application closes on the 14th again, and if you have any questions, you can contact TJ Reed at his email at treed, that's REED, at azmag.gov. Oops, sorry, I clicked too fast. Okay. Also, very exciting news with the addition of our new board members. Now that we have a more complete membership on the board, we're looking for a second member of the board to be my co-chair. Yay! So if you are someone who's interested in that role, please send a letter of interest to Katie at kgentry@azmag.gov by February 18th. And I want to mention that in a little bit here, we are going to be discussing the potential of opening some additional board seats. We're going to have that discussion. And in that discussion, Katie is going to provide an overview of our matrix, what positions we have now, who is filling them, and with that comes, you're going to find that several of us, I think there are 4 of us that are terming out about in October, if I'm correct, and I am one of them. So I will be leaving my seat, so there will also be another opportunity for another co-chair recruitment come October, maybe prior to October, so that someone takes over as soon as I leave. So just want you to keep all that in mind. So the person that will fill with me now will have the benefit of having a co-chair till October, and then the benefit of having yet another one in what comes after October, November, I think. Yeah, seems so far away now. So just want to put that out there and keep eyes on that matrix when we get to it. So we're looking again for letters of interest from current board members by February 18th to Katie, please. And if you have any questions about that, you could also ask her or I. We have developed a co-chair job description of sorts, so you kind of understand what's involved in that role. And I believe Katie will be sending that out to board members after this meeting. Any questions on any of that, or do any board members have just any other items to discuss under updates? Okay. I'm not, or any audience members. I'm not seeing anything on my end, Katie. No. Okay. Perfect. Then we'll move on to the next agenda item, which indeed is our board member composition discussion, which I was just mentioning. So as requested at the last board meeting, we wanted to have further discussion of the board member composition. Our application process showed that there was significant interest in participating on this board and being involved, which is fantastic. I wanted to open up the floor to have a discussion around the current board membership composition and if there is interest in adding additional board seats. Before we jump into that discussion though, like I said, I'd like to have Katie give us an overview of the current structure and who fills those roles. Katie?
Hoping you all can see this. So basically, just wanted to give you a brief overview of what seats do you currently have on the board and what seats, who fills those seats. And then also on here is your term expiration. As Ryan was mentioning, you do have 5 seats that are expiring in October. So we'll be doing recruitment again in the fall for those seats prior to October when you all are turning off. We'll kind of have like a seamless transition to the new folks coming on. Currently in your charter, you all have 1 seat for formerly homeless, 1 seat for ESG. That is specifically an ESG direct recipient from the federal government, not a subrecipient from our 6 cities, 4 cities plus the county plus the state that receive ESG money. You have 2 policy and advocacy seats. You decide how these get broken up. Whether you're policy focused or advocacy focused. You have up to 3 COC funded provider seats. You have up to 3 funder seats, and then up to 4 community seats. On top of these seats, you also have a geographic representation presence a racial and ethnic diversity preference, and then an underrepresented groups preference. So that basically says that within these seats, you are looking for a geographic balance between East, West, and Central, one from each. You have racial and ethnic diversity, saying that you should have all races and ethnicities represented on your board that are represented in the homelessness system. And then you have a underrepresented groups, so saying that all the underrepresented groups that are represented in the homelessness system you would like to have on the board as well. Happy to answer any questions you have about this. I know for some of you have probably been seeing this forever, and some of you, this is probably your first time seeing it. So do you want to provide space if you have questions before you jump into your discussion?
Katie, it's Marshall. Is there any way you can make it just a little bigger? Thank you. Even with my readers, I can't see it, so thank you. Oh, that works. Thank you so much.
Of course, when it's right in front of me, I forget about that.
Okay, so one of the things that doesn't just naturally show up on this is that overlay piece that Katie was talking about with the geographic diversity from the Central, East, and West Valleys, the diversity piece, and what was the third piece, Katie?
Underrepresented groups.
The represented groups. So that would be like the different populations that are served within our system. And then also, right, is that right, Katie? Like families, veterans, single individuals, people with
underrepresented groups would be like LGBTQIA+, veteran, disability, lived experience,
so
trans. It's you.
So
as
we're counting on our provider seats then to cover our population content areas?
Yes.
Okay.
Or community seats to fill that population areas.
Okay. Yeah, so that's one of the interesting things about this matrix, if you haven't seen it before, is community seats can look different every time. And also board members often fill, as you know, because you've been questioned as a board member about all the characteristics you may have. Many board members are filling multiple preferences. So that doesn't show up on this more simplistic matrix, but it does exist. So I'll just give myself as an example. So I am filling a funder position at this moment because the city of Chandler funds homeless providers, but I also am serving the East Valley geographic preference at this moment. So that's just one example.
So Katie, this is Latisha. I have one question. What are the gaps that you're seeing right now? Since we can't see that overlay, are there clear gaps that we need to discuss in our representation?
I would say one clear gap is you do not have a Hispanic representative on the committee right now, or on the board right now. So that's your racial and ethnic diversity. I think you can probably always strive to do more with underrepresented groups, just from the standpoint of like, I was really excited about how far you guys came in this board recruitment, because I think that was something that was a target, but you didn't have a huge representation both with racial and ethnic diversity and also underrepresented groups in this board recruitment. And then as far as geographic diversity, right now you have an East Valley, you have a West Valley, and you have a Central. Those are represented through your three funders of Chris, Marshall, and Ryan. But you do, you all need to kind of decide what else. Do you want more of that? Do you want less of that? You have to decide kind of what that looks like. Does that help answer that question, Tish? Awesome.
So one of the things that had come up at our last meeting, and I think this is just sort of a new way of thinking perhaps, is that there is not representation at this point on the board for someone from the county. And the county is an interesting cat because they obviously represent all the geographies and have a play in all of our jurisdictions. And over the last, I'd say 10 years, the county has been, or more, but with all of the opportunities we have with COVID specific, and hopefully building on that with all of the funds we have to build homeless infrastructure and affordable housing and services at this point, the county has been, very present at the table. So I know one of the discussions I would like to at least have today with the board is it perhaps time that we make sure that we always have a county seat? That would be like an overlaying, to me, it would be sort of the fourth geography spot. So you'd have a Central and East Valley and a West Valley, and then the overlaying county. So that's one discussion I know I would like to have today.
I would second that. I agree. We need county representation because they are overlaying so much of the work. And I would ask also, do we need state representation? We talk about political and advocacy. I don't know at what level of the state. Do we have anyone from the Department of Housing on here?
We do not. We've had that discussion in previous cycles. The tough part about that, and this is totally up for discussion by the board, is just that there are 3 continuum of cares in the state. There's a balance of state, which is the rural communities, APIMA, which is Tucson, most generally, and then Maricopa, which covers Maricopa County. So that's where we've stood so far, is to remain as local as possible, covering Maricopa County, but that's certainly up for discussion. Board members, before we dive into any one thing, are there other areas that you would like to discuss?
Yeah, I want to.
This is Rob.
Oh, sorry.
This is Rob. I don't specifically have any questions about geographic areas, but I do want to dive into, and I will have questions kind of on the next steps and the numbers of and all of that. So I'll hold my questions.
I'm sorry, Rob, you said next steps and numbers of?
Right. I want to be able to talk through the current number that we have, the number that are falling off, how we would be able to kind of roll into that so we don't have gaps, specifically on those that are going to be rolling off, to how we make sure we have representation in the future. So it's kind of following the bouncing ball.
Okay. And Liz?
Yeah, I think the other thing for me is this kind of like East Valley, West Valley, central kind of conversation, and the expectation that, the East Valley or West Valley cities kind of come up with one individual who's going to represent all of those cities. So I don't have like the exact, but I wanted to like open up conversation for looking at potentially like the point in time count numbers, or considering number of individuals experiencing homelessness in their different area, and looking to be a little bit more supportive or adding seats for municipalities when they have the higher number of individuals experiencing the greatest impact. And I the only other thought was just like, we do seem, and it's fantastic, but through this new work, lighter on the funder side than some of our other seats, with our new governance charter looking to like ignite and unite folks and bring more resources into the community. We may want to consider our funder seats and adding a funder seat.
Thank you, Liz. I also, and I know we've had some discussion here, it is difficult to, it's an interesting notion to expect, one jurisdiction to represent another. So how do we include, all jurisdictions that want to be at the table and are really playing a major role at the table while not making our board ginormous? So that is a challenge I think we should discuss. Jackie, you have your hand up?
I would just echo what Liz said. Liz, I was trying to figure out a way to articulate what I wanted to say, and you really did that for me. I think that we're in an unusual time in our lives as providers and trying to make a dent in homelessness, that, you know, expanding that funder category, I think is essential when we have people that are interested in joining in on that level.
Thank you, Jackie. Eric, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just was gonna ask Katie or the staff to meet the goal around the representative from the county. And this may have been said, do we have that? I mean, is that, can we make that happen through our current policy, or would we have to change the policy in order to do that?
Sorry, Eric, I just muted you accidentally when I was trying to unmute myself. So
I was like, wow, did I say something? No, just kidding.
No, my apologies. On your agenda today is the possibility to expand membership if you want to. So you have that ability to take that action today if you're looking to do that. And then we would just amend your charter with that kind of in the same process with you all expanding the seats. I think your second question is, as far as specifically with the county, do we have the method to expanding the seat to them? We would go back to them and say, who would you like in this seat if it is a standing county seat? Did that answer both of your questions?
It did. Thank you.
Awesome.
Chris, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just wanted to chime in on, I mean, I guess we're having a discussion now. I don't know where this is going to go and take the form. So the reason I'm here is for the West Valley, that we were unified in who should go forward. I was happy to do it. I had applied a couple times before. I know not all cities are the same or may not work together, but I do think it should be, I think what got us here was those who had the higher numbers had all the say and all the power. And then this last strategic go round, just to be frank, the West Valley cities are, you know, for not contributing and not participating, and yet we weren't at the table. We don't have the same resources larger cities do to even participate. So we're kind of disadvantaged on both sides. So I'm here to advocate for the small cities are underrepresented. A lot of what we put at stake here is about supporting those that are underrepresented and not overrepresent those who are well represented, well funded. So if we want to add a central one, I support adding a county. I support adding a state, those centralized things. But when you get into the size, that's going to be a whole nother discussion that I think we'll need to have further discussion around.
And I will say, just for reference, so I'm terming off on October. I am an East Valley representative. I'm looking to see if any of the other geographies are terming off.
This is Jackie. I'm terming off, and I'm East Valley as well.
Correct.
Typically for cities, Chris was just put on and was a West Valley, and then Marshall is not terming off until 2024.
Yep. So there will be an opportunity for some new East Valley representation in October. And then let's see, to follow up on Rob's question, the other seats that are terming out are a provider representative with Liz, who also represents an underrepresented, a very important, probably the most important underrepresented population in formerly homeless, and Joan. So there's a statewide, but more specifically our advocacy representative. What do you actually fill, Joan? Let me see. Policy advocacy. Okay. So Joan is terming off, and Jackie, so family provider in the East Valley. Did I miss anybody? Community bridges. So you've got behavioral health representation there too. That's really valley-wide, I would say.
Charles is also terming off in 2022.
Can't see him. Okay, so another behavioral health
seat, and what seat is he actually filling? COC funded provider. Okay, as is Jackie. Okay. Yeah, so Rob, does that answer your question about sort of what's terming out and what we'll need to be recruiting for?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. And I believe, Katie, as a reminder, we did do some membership, some updates to our membership terms recently when we revised the charter. And I think if I'm getting this correct, we now have 3-year terms. They do not automatically renew as they once did. If you were still interested, if you did want to serve another 3-year term, you would be competing again with everybody else who would like to fill that seat. So that is how our new charter reads. All righty. So I heard a couple, I'll just start with some things I heard. So I heard a couple of people express interest with having a county seat. Are there more folks who would like to provide their thoughts about that? And if we did that, that would be the first time that we're saying very specifically to one organization, we think you should have a seat at the table. So I imagine that I'm just talking this out since this would be totally new and something we would have to add to our membership guidelines, is that every 3 years, I'm not sure if it would be just the county always has to fill the seat, or every 3 years the county would have an opportunity to appoint somebody new or reappoint who they feel is their best representative. Does that sound about right to everybody, or?
Would you like a motion?
Well, can we have a little more?
I'd just like to hear everybody's thoughts about it.
Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, no worries. I just, Jackie, you and I, we're on the review committee. So I think it's important. I mean, if we're going to do this, the person matters. That's what happened this last round. So the person really does matter. So that appointment, I don't want us locking into it. I think if we have, if you look at and I don't know what it takes to change the structure. Got all these funders, and there are multiple people who applied and have just been appointed, could have filled any number of categories, right? And so maybe there's one just for government, and we have something in that. I think it's not a guarantee because of the person matters. I think you have a spot, so you better put somebody that is going to willing to accept. Not, we're going to say submit another one. So you run the risk of it being vacant, right? Which doesn't figure out our numbers that we're not dependent upon it, but they're such a major funder. They are the region themselves. I do think it's important for them to have it. We've had it for such a long time. It probably feels like, how do we do this without them there? But I think they're such a key part of what we're all doing, and that they should be there. Just like I think we should always have Valley, a West Valley, and the Central. I just think we need that representation. And again, we're representing numbers, right? All of us in whatever category we're in. So we don't need everybody there. We're the ones, especially if they to say, all right, I'm going to have this person be the one for this spot. They better be putting forth their best person to do it justice, because that's their role, to advocate that perspective.
So what I'm hearing from you, Chris, is there should be it has to be the right person. So just because you have a seat, because you're the county, it has to be the person who has the experience, responsibilities, et cetera, around this topic. And it should still be reviewed by the recruitment committee to be accepted. Are those the things I'm hearing?
Yeah, I don't think anybody should have an automatic. I do think the board has a role in that regard, that we should, and again, I think we definitely had somebody, but they didn't put forth perhaps the right person. Yeah, I definitely think we always have to scrutinize it for our own purposes.
Okay, Eric?
Sorry, yeah, I was tempted to wait, but kind of along the lines of what Chris said. I mean, my understanding of our current and previous policy here has been that individuals put themselves forward, or somebody puts forward the individual, as opposed to the agency or the entity, which I totally agree and get that the county is absolutely critical. I think I would like our policy to follow, a method related to, because it does sound like if we made this a county seat, that would be very different than everything else that's on our current membership, I think. So I just would want us to be deliberate about, that decision, I think.
No, that's exactly right, Eric. It would be very different. We've never given any one agency a position. We've always had categories. And as you know, we're looking for multiple things out of the person that fills that spot. So this would be different. And I think that is part of why the recruitment came out the way it did, is because there were lots of wonderful attributes that the members that were selected have that were necessary on the board. So I think the person is important. So we would have to figure out what that looks like. Amy.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. One option for the board to consider is, I do agree that we don't want it to be about any one person or any one entity. So a while back, the board added a central seat. And so while that's not designated specifically, that's not calling out the city of Phoenix, the city of Phoenix is a central city. And so we have East, West, and Central. A lot of what I heard as we were developing the regional action plan, for example, was the need to really approaching homelessness as a full region, and we don't have a regional government seat. And so if you were to add the seat up, so we have East, West, Central, and regional, then you would open it up for any regional government to apply. And then that would go through the recruitment process, it would go through the membership committee, and then you'd have the opportunity to apply applications representing that regional government.
Amy, can you give examples of who besides the county could fulfill a spot like that?
None come to mind, but when we're
Okay.
talking about adding a central seat, none other than Phoenix comes to mind. So
Okay.
it's recognizing the structural government. If there are other entities, though, that would consider themselves to be a regional government, then they would certainly be welcome to apply. So it's not precluding anybody else from applying.
Okay, thank you. Marshall.
So I may get myself slightly in trouble for saying this, but I'm just thinking of some of the politics around this. So I agree completely. We need to have a geographical spread. So East and West and Central, if you will. I don't know how we get around not having a county and not stating specifically the county, just by nature of the county and who they are, because I could see if for some reason, let's say Phoenix, I'm no longer in the role, and I know it's going to be presumed, if you will, that Phoenix needs to have a seat just because of our geographical scope. But if it's not stated that way, then it leaves itself open for, I don't know, Guadalupe. I'm just throwing city that could be considered. So I don't know, honestly, if we do need to think about from a government perspective and think about the elected officials that sit on the MAG board, who are all elected officials who come from towns, municipalities, and tribal governments. I don't know if we do need to have a conversation around, do you designate for sure an East City, a West City, a Central City, and the county? And of course, you put parameters around it. We know that would be one of the things we need to do. But I just want to put that out there that as we've been talking about the regional approach and the regional plan, the politics that played out in it, and that many of us who are on this call or on this board and some who aren't, we really got into a lot of the politics of which cities were involved in MAG conversations from the policymaking level, as well as conversations of which cities were involved as MAG was helping was taking the leadership on crafting the regional plan. So I just want to put that out there for consideration that we may need to, for the politics of what we deal with, have to get to designating 4 spots that are tied specifically to municipality or tribal or county, or 5, or I don't know what that looks like. So I just want to put that out there from my perspective.
Yep. Yes, I've had feelings like that as well. And right now the geographies tend to be filling funder roles, but I don't know that that's necessarily how it has to be. Right now, that's where it has ended up. Although Jackie did bring something important up too, is, she's an East Valley provider. That's also important. And we haven't necessarily looked at it from that perspective before. There's only certain entities that are going to, specifically really represent a certain area. Some are going to be more broad. So that's another consideration. Liz.
Yeah, I just also wanted to call attention to that the East, West, and Central cities are not designated seats. It's just discretionary points, and it's only one discretionary point. And for me, I think that the goal for having the county at the table is, just to speak like transparently, right, is to make sure that they're at the table with the largest issues that we see occurring within our continuum. And, a lot of the information is pulled up from all these subcommittees with the way that our funds are used, the HUD funds go out. So I think it's the same thing for me when it comes to ensuring that municipalities are also at the table, and not just in hopes that they're there because they get the one discretionary point, but at the table, because then it keeps their attention on the work. And then it keeps them at the table. It helps develop those relationships so that we're truly coming together to try to help address some serious issues that are going on in those different areas. And I think that, potentially it can be done by designating those seats, or I agree with adding the county seat since it does cover everything. And they do get a lot of funds that come into our community. And then also potentially just adding another funder seat.
Thank you, Liz. One of the things I'm hearing too is, or that's just developing in my mind, I guess, as I'm listening to you all, is one way to make sure that the right person lands in various seats is just to create some criteria, level of experience in this topic, previous work in this topic, what role do you fill in the organization that you're currently with? I think those are some things that we could do to just make sure. I will say that the county is in transition. They have a new human services director. They're restaffing their homeless staff, as we know. And they've done the new director has also done some restructuring. She's creating some new levels on her executive team. So I think they might have just been caught in transition in this particular recruitment cycle, and may not have had an opportunity to think all the way through what the best representative would be for them at this moment. But we can help by creating some of those criteria, I think. Chris?
Yeah, just so I wanted to follow up. I really like what Amy said about having a regional agency spot. I really would advocate to have maybe 4 government and 3 municipal, and specifically call it out, East, West, and Central, and a regional. If an area doesn't fill it, it's on them, right? If they don't put forth filled, it's on them. But I think they need to be their own category. And that when we went through this last go round, my concern was we had another city representative coming in and would fit another category. I would say, no, we fit these categories, or that's it. If you're a municipal or state government, or a government agency, you have to fit in this column. And then the rest are providers and everybody else to achieve all those things. And that way, if they have an opportunity, it's up to them to take advantage of it. And then we don't get out of balance by somebody coming in under another category.
So then are you suggesting, Chris, that under the funders, you would have to say like non-governmental funder?
Well, that's why I say I don't know if it's its own category, if we can do that. We're the board, we're the ones who set this thing. So I don't know what it takes to, if it's really literally up to us, we make a motion, we add a new count. Now, and then we squeeze the other, we don't squeeze them. I just know you always have, there's numbers at the top, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, and 4. Those might need to be adjusted because we're going to take 4 of them out and make them their own column. So we might need to right size it. And again, are we changing the total capacity or not of the numbers, et cetera? But that's what I would say. Yes, keep them in their own category, and that's the only ones they can apply for.
Ryan, can I jump in really quick?
Yep.
You all do have full control of this. This is your charter. So there are some requirements from HUD. So we are keeping those in the back of our mind, but you can change numbers. You can shift categories. If you want to completely delete a category, you can, minus the formerly homeless and ESG. Those are HUD requirements to be on your board. So if you, Chris, as you were saying, like pull out government and have like a non-government funder, like you can change any of the wording around any of these too.
Mm-hmm. I think just historically having that vantage point, we started using the funder spots as the geographic spots as it became more evident that that was going to be really important in terms of having a true regional response. So we might just be at that point where we're ready to shift that. Funders are certainly important too. And there's always going to be, I just want to call out that there's always going to be overlap in terms of, we all represent many things. So we might not be able to, structure it exactly. But I think it's important that as board members, not only do we bring all of ourselves, because I think we're looked at in that way as we are recruited, but also that we are remembering what we represent in the decisions we're making too. Liz.
Yeah, I want to be cautious with placing those kinds of limitations on our municipality representatives. I think that historically, when we look at the applications, it's about the individual, it's about what they bring to the table. And so there are some municipalities who are a little bit more progressive with the work and putting up new programs and stuff. And I think that we want to be able to consider that rather than limiting it just to specific seats for them. Because if we get, say, like 3 applications for funder and, some of them are municipality and some are not, I wouldn't want the municipalities to not be at not be allowed because there's another representative there for the East Valley when that individual brings so many things to the table that we want to use as a board.
Yeah. Thank you, Liz. Anybody else? Any new members have any thoughts on this? I know it's hard to come in as a new member when we've been having this discussion for a little while, but.
I'll jump in. This is Rob. Yes, it is a little bit difficult not knowing the backstory from conversations previously. Obviously, we're having some thought through this. My initial question earlier was kind of thinking more of like the on-ramp of bringing on other individuals as some are going to be leaving and what that overlap could potentially be if we would need to increase the number of members in general to be able to have overlap, if you would, before the 5 individuals leave later this year, and then filling some of those gaps. So I do believe, just personally, that representation is critical in the different parts of the Valley, but I also believe that individuals probably come to the table with many different parts that they can represent. And I know that I do myself personally. So, part of that conversation is well-intended and not being here previously. I do support the idea of county representation specifically because of the magnitude of the work and the partnership with that. So that was just my initial thought.
Okay, I feel like I'm hearing a lot of support for taking the 3, now 4 with a regional taking the 3 geographic, so central, west, and east positions, separating those so that those are called out representations, and then having a regional body as well. So that would be 4 geographic specific priorities. And then I'm just trying to repeat back what I'm hearing at the moment. And then I feel like if we did that, we'd want to further discuss what we wanted from funder positions. and how many that would look like. Does everyone agree that that's sort of what the discussion is at the moment? And does anyone have any input on what, if we were to take those out, what would the funders look like? The other thing we just need to be cognizant of is just, the size of the board and still being able to operate and reach quorum, make decisions, have connected enough relationships that we can really do meaningful work. So, I'm very open to hearing from MAG staff about numbers and how much they feel, what they feel the numbers look like in terms of being able to manage that and things like that as well. If MAG staff would like to comment at that, I'd welcome that at this time.
I would say you are as productive as a board as you all put the time into it. We have a fairly large committee right now, and I've had some really robust discussions in that committee, but I would hesitate to expand too quickly. You just brought 5 members on today. And so I would caution you to not dramatically extend, given that you have 5 new people and you want to have kind of this historical knowledge passed down from group to group. I don't think adding a seat or 2, though, is going to break your quorum. You all have pretty good attendance and know when meetings are coming. So,
okay. And perhaps we could move folks around a little bit and then bring on things as people get more comfortable and roll through type of thing. Sort of I don't know what I would call that, but like a phased in approach, maybe.
So the other option that you all could do, and take this kind of how you want to take it, you could have so currently, like, Marshall fills our ESG seat, and you would essentially have a rotation. Your ESG seat can only be filled by 4 cities, the county or the state DES. And so if you, depending on who is filling those geographic representation seats, they would probably also fill that ESG seat. So we would need to look at the language behind that, but it would kind of be you're checking both of these boxes, not necessarily adding.
You wouldn't always necessarily have to have both, depending on, That could even be if we're just trying to keep a reasonable decision-making group. That could be one of the things that was stated. That is, if one of the geographic representations has ESG, another ESG recipient doesn't have to be found or something like that. In the same space, though, we might also want to be cognizant that, okay, the county has ESG. So we could always have that covered right there. But do we always want the county representative to also be representing ESG, or do we want to get perspectives from other ESG recipients? So we'd have to be very diligent about those decisions, the recruitment. I think maybe each year or whatever the cycle would be is the recruitment committee or the work group, the recruitment work group could take a look at what's going each year and what the representations are and how much shifting we've had to make sure that we're having diverse representation of different content areas, and make recommendations to the board.
I did want to share, Lisa's volume is not working, and she commented, I like the phased in approach, and our thinking could evolve as we do our strategic planning. And yes, to the regional, my volume is not working right now, so we'll be typing in my votes here.
Thank you for that.
So, Madam Chair, I think you captured the essence of what we've been talking about. And one of the ways we can control the effectiveness of our work in terms of quorums and so forth, I do believe we have attendance requirements, do we not? And I think holding all of our board members to that attendance requirement, and if they're not meeting it, we simply ask them to recuse themselves.
Yep. We do have those, and those can always be looked at as well. So I feel like we could entertain a motion. We could also further discuss what the funder seats should look like. We could actually merge the funders, some of the funder seats, right? I feel like if I'm looking at the board right now, we could actually merge 3 seats to the west, east, and central and still have 1 funder. If I'm reading that correctly, we could make that movement right now, which would do some shifting in terms of setting infrastructure, but not make gigantic waves. And then bring on adding that regional position. And we could also add more funders if the board felt necessary. I guess acknowledging that probably all of your geographic regions inherently are also going to be funders. Liz.
Yeah, I'm just concerned with the language for the geographic specific funder, because are we saying that it must be filled by a municipality?
I think the funder, I'm thinking the funder piece should go away on the geographies. What I'm hearing is the geography should be standalone. You're a geography, you're a west, a central, an east, or a regional. And then the funder seats would be completely separated. And I'm just noting in terms of having a phased approach that you could get, besides the county, which would need to be recruited for, and some criteria developed before then, that we could actually change to the geography right now, plus still have a funder right now. But we could also entertain if there's something specific. I know, Liz, you had talked about funders. Is there anything specific you're looking for in non-governmental funders?
Money. Just kidding.
Well, no, that's valid.
Passion. No, the ability to help finance our increase in permanent supportive housing units. But yeah, I just want to make sure we're clear that I do think it's important that for East, West, and Central, the representative is from a municipality. And I want to make sure that's just how I feel. I want to kind of get others' thoughts on that. And I don't know that we call it out here specifically.
And does the group feel that one from each area is the right number? And then, of course, like for instance, I'm terming off in October, another East Valley can then come on board, and so on and so forth.
I'm concerned about that method because I think it puts a lot of, I know, and it's good to have responsibility, but I think it puts a lot of responsibility on the West and also the East Valley cities to work together for the rest of time until this is updated, make sure they have the one right representative who's coming and representing them on the board. And then, I suppose that the other thing is I don't think that a municipality should not be considered for filling another seat. Those are my thoughts on it.
I'm hearing 2 things from you, Liz. You might consider more than one representative per area, or you might consider a municipality also filling another role like a funder.
Yeah, I think if the right candidate comes forward and the group, interprets their resume and what they bring to the table and determines it's the right person and they fit into another category, then they should be considered. I think the last thing on it too, and this is just thinking in terms of the city, right? It's large resources, lots of politics. If a West Valley, for instance, city needs to wait until Chris, is termed, where does that put us with the overlay of information, right? Because now the entire East Valley representation is going to be out in October and the new person not eligible to apply until when, right? Is there any concern with the kind of like overlay and transfer of information for the representation for those cities?
Interesting question.
I will say that the hope with recruitment is that you would be recruiting in September so that as board members come off, the new board members would come on right away. There wouldn't be like a delay in who is coming out and who is coming on.
I personally would also hope that people that are interested in serving on the board are participating prior to wanting to participate in the board, that their people aren't just not participating anymore because they're not on the board or vice versa.
I agree. I think there's a great opportunity for us to be exactly what we put forth in our charter changes, that engaged outward force to educate our fellow representatives in whatever category they could be in on even how to apply and everything else. I learned a lot just going through the process. I learned a whole lot more being on the review side of it, just exactly the discussion, how the things are ranked, what you wrote compared to what others have written. You go, wow, maybe I'm lucky I even got it this far. And, I do think we need to take the reins by ourselves, right? We're getting in control. What I see here is probably more control than what I observed. So I inundated myself on all that. Now, I don't even know if anybody knew I was on them. I was on the YouTube channel. I do think this virtual thing, I think we need more opportunity for people to be as involved real time as possible when you have deadlines in advance. I think that's dissuades people to, well, I didn't even put anything in. What's the point of chiming in? I'm not going to be able to be heard. So I do think there's a lot we can learn from what we've gone through, just like we did in the strategic planning. What did we learn out of this? How can we better? I think we can be certainly better in this, but I think that's one of those rules. Advocate out there, our fellow East Valley, West Valley, et cetera. I will say West Valley went forever without any representation. And it was the politics are going to happen anyways, right? They happen no matter what we do here today and tomorrow. I have observed people at a board level saying, well, I got to check with my leadership. Well, they all have a representation somewhere. The committee has everybody represented. Managers have everybody represented. This doesn't have to mirror those. And I don't think it should mirror those. I think what I've learned in this, one, I think municipalities and funders in particular, their money, they need to know how it's going to be used in order they can justify it. We all have a role as a board member and I made it clear with my bosses, look, I'm going to advocate from my perspective. We'll check in, we always do, but I'm here to serve the role, what I've been put in for the West Valley. It's not just ours. We currently, we all align pretty well, but will that, will we maybe change this in a couple of years? Maybe, who knows, because of those politics. But I definitely think we can advocate for the direction we're going. And it feels like we're doing that today and with the strategic plan and within our own strategic alignment sessions that we're doing.
Thank you, Chris. So lots of thoughts. I might entertain a motion if anyone has one to bring forward. We can do them in phases too, and discuss each one and build something up. We don't have to do everything today. I would like to see something accomplished today, given we've been discussing this for quite some time.
I'm happy to move. Well, you just took the screen away now. Wording on what you typed on that column. As far as an initial phase, I would motion that we, I don't know what it said originally, but that we modify the geographic specific municipality / whatever it previously read to be the geographic specific municipality / regional government from 1, does it say 1 to 4? I can't see the 1 to 4.
Yes, that's right.
Chris, and the previous was just a funder. So we split funder to funder and then geographic specific municipality / regional government. This was just the notes that I took off of you all. So if you want it to be something else, more than welcome to change it.
But I think what you're saying, Chris, is you would make a motion for one designated east, west, central, and regional.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Does anyone want to second that?
I'd second that motion, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie. So we have a first from Chris and a second from Jackie. Is there any discussion? Oh, could you please read Lisa's comments aloud, Katie?
Yeah, Lisa Glow commented, I want to amend to add funders to expand to 2. I think Lisa, that is not necessarily part of this motion. This is just the 1 to 4 motion. Chris, can you clarify your motion just is for designating a seat for regional government, East, West, and Central municipality representation?
For me, it's just that, those specifics. I think we should have them separately motion.
Okay. And Jackie, that was your second?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay. Any additional questions, discussion? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll ask Katie to please take a roll call vote.
Sorry. Latisha Brown Gambino.
Yay.
Jacqueline Campbell.
Yay.
Eric Cole.
Yay.
Elizabeth DaCosta.
Yay.
Rochelle Franklin.
Yay.
Lisa Glow said yay. Chris Hallett.
Yay.
Rob Podlager.
Yay.
Joan Service.
Yay.
Charles Sullivan.
Yay.
Jackie Taylor.
Yay.
Danielle Wright.
Yay.
Chair Ryan Balch.
Yay.
Your motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Before we move on to a potential second motion, I'm asking staff this question. Do we also need to discuss potential movement for current members into those slots, or is that something that can happen behind the scenes, or how would that be tackled?
I would say that you can move those because that has how you currently have been thinking about them. But Amy, do you have weigh in on that?
Thank you. So just to clarify the question, so Madam Chair and members of the board, so you're asking if we can just move the people into that new category? Is that the question?
Yeah, I guess I'm asking, would it be appropriate to move certain people to those now, or for a membership recruitment work group, perhaps to look at the people that could potentially move into those spots now and whether they feel it best to leave them in funder or move them to that. And also the other thing that probably needs to be considered is I'm hearing that the board would like to create some criteria for the regional position, and maybe the criteria would actually apply to every board position for all I know, or at least the geographic positions prior to that recruitment. I'm just trying to figure out how we make that happen, if it's behind the scenes stuff or if it's something we have to vote on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based on what I've heard, and please feel free to weigh in and steer this in a different direction. But from what I've heard today, I'm hearing a lot of consensus around adding that new category, the way that Katie has illustrated for you on the screen. And then, so that's a first action that's essentially been done as part of the board meeting today per your direction. And then the second step, if this is how you'd like to proceed, would be for the membership committee then to meet to put some criteria and some parameters around what the expectations would be for that regional government seat. And then based on their direction, MAG staff can send out the solicitation and then reconvene the membership committee when we have received those applications.
Is that the point in which they would decide whether those of us that are like, it would be myself, Chris, and Marshall, if we would be moved into the geographic positions, or is that up to the membership recruitment, or are we pretty much wanting to do that now? What does that look like?
If the board wishes, I believe that you'd have standing to be able to grandfather the current members into those positions.
Okay. I'm trying to refrain from giving a recommendation on that. I have a thought about it, but anyone else have a feeling about if the geographic membership should be moved now or through another process?
I think we can move it. I would agree with moving it now.
Okay. Marshall, Chris, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I'm very comfortable with that.
Yep, I was going to recommend that. Yep.
Okay, I am comfortable with that as well. Okay, so that is excellent progress. And then the next step on the regional spot will be the membership recruitment work group, whether you call together the last one or create a new one, however you decide to go about that. We'll create some recommendations, criteria for the regional position. And I would say I would like that group, whoever the group may be, maybe it needs to be for all geographic positions. You know, the criteria, not just the regional one. Or maybe even all positions. I don't know, but why not consider it while they're doing that work? And then the recruitment will go out. Okay.
Madam Chair, members
yes.
of the board, Chris, Liz, and Jackie, you all did how your charter is currently written is that you would select it for each membership recruitment. So this is technically still the same membership recruitment cycle. So if you all are okay with it, we would recommend bringing the three of you back together.
Works for me.
I'm willing to do that.
I'm not sure I understood what you said. I missed you on the very end of it.
Sorry, I'm having like a coughing fit over here at the same time. We would recommend bringing the three of you back together because when you all assemble a membership group, you assemble it for that like entire year. So if you had recruitment between those times, until there's a next entire round of recruitment, we would be using the same group. So given that this is the same year of recruitment, we would recommend bringing the three of you back together to continue assessing because you assessed the previous recommendations.
Are you talking about term when it ends?
Yeah, so this term, you just brought on 5 new members, and then essentially in 2022, we would bring another new membership work group together to assess those new applications in this coming fall. But between last fall and this coming fall, you all would continue to come back together if you had openings. So say somebody else dropped off and you all wanted to open recruitment at that time.
Oh, the work group.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm
sorry.
Sorry, I probably was not as clear as I needed to.
Oh, no, I got you. Absolutely. Yep.
Gosh, good thing, Chris. My feelings were about ready to be hurt.
I apologize. I was looking up here and it's like, that's all I was hearing was what I was reading instead of listening. Sorry.
Okay, so thank you guys so much for that. Are there any other recommendations, motions board members would like to make around recruitment at this time?
We'll see if I can do this, but I would like to make a motion to increase our funder seats actually to 1 to 3, because it doesn't require that we do 2 or 3, but would give us the flexibility.
Oh, I'll wait till discussion. Okay, so Liz has made a motion to increase the funders from 1 all the way to 3. Liz, is that okay? Do I have a second on that? Oh, I'm trying not to read the chat. Katie, can you please read it to the audience?
Yeah, Lisa Glow seconded Liz's motion.
Okay, thank you. We're just doing that, everybody, because we know that our audience cannot see the chat. So we want to make sure that the full audience is able to see everything that's happening, and or Lisa lost her connectivity. So, okay, so there's a second on that from Lisa. Is there any discussion? I know I have a question for staff about that. And I guess this really goes for any, if it was, I guess I need to clarify to Liz and Lisa, is it 1 up to 3 or is it 3 hard?
So when you have a range, you can have 1, 2, or 3 in that.
So is it a range, I guess is the question I'm asking. Okay, it is a range.
Correct.
Okay, then my question to the staff was going to be like, so the board could decide they only want one funder right now because they've got so many other funders in other categories or something like that. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
And you would all decide that essentially your total capacity is the upper limit of all your ranges. So you don't ever have to be a total capacity board. If you have 17 seats, you can have 15 filled, which is what you had prior to these new members coming on.
That's right.
Essentially, you just had less of some of these different seats filled at that time.
I'm just conscious of quorum and things like that. So that's perfect. Thank you.
Jackie, I think you had a comment and so does Eric.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. So before, was it just limited to 1?
So prior, you all just had this being the funder seat and not a geographic specific municipality and funder. So in this seat, you had 1 to 3 before. Right now, prior to this, your 3 funders were Chris, Ryan, and then Rob with the SUW.
Okay, thank you.
So this would make it up to 3 in addition. Well, the way it would shake out is if they all move to the regional seats, then we'd have up to 3 new people that we could solicit. Is that right? Or
we'd actually only have up to 2 because Rob is still sitting in that seat.
Oh, that's right. So I'm sorry, Rob.
Rob is still 1, and then you would have up to 2 more if this motion passes.
I see. Okay. And Katie, I don't know if you can do, I know I can't do this math on the fly, but if we pass this, what would we be looking at for a total membership, operationally in the next few months?
So if you filled all of those seats, your capacity would be 17. Okay. I put a caveat on that 17. Currently it's 14. I put a caveat on that 17 because I counted your ESG person also being a geographic specific municipality. Yeah. Because right now Marshall is sitting in both those seats.
That makes sense. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
I have a question similar to that then. I mean, I counted them just like you did. So what is the board by charter? Is it 14?
Right now it is 14, but it is based on this matrix. So before, when we only had up to 14 before, and so our governance charter said that you could only have a maximum of 14 seats. So we would change that governance charter to be a maximum of 17 seats if you had all of these at their capacity.
So, well, I guess that's the nature. Because I don't know that we need to increase the number. I just thought this gave you flexibility where they would be, meaning 14 is 14. And if you got 3 over here, you're going to have to only have 1 over here. And you manage to the 14 versus managing the max. Because if you go to the max, then these numbers are 3 and 4. And
you all can decide that. So if you want to set a cap on your limit, you can set a cap of only 14. Given your last conversation, I would actually put your cap at 15 with that regional government seat, unless you want to wait and do recruitment and not fill that seat right now. So you can do it either way. It is up to you to cap your seat lower and have flexibility, or be able to fill all these seats.
I would make a motion and increase by 1 to fill that regional one that we added and not be at the cost of anything else.
So Chris, I think we're in the middle of a motion right now. We're in discussion on the last one, so let's get through that one. Although I think what you're saying plays in, so maybe rephrasing in your motion as a thought to the board in case someone wants to either amend the motion or vote no on the motion, because they want to vote on a different motion. Could you just clarify what your thought is? Your thought is not, if I'm hearing you right, is not adding an additional 1 to 3 spots, but having that as an extra category that could also be used. Is that correct?
I was thinking, I mean, if the motion was make that 1 to 3, I think it's a standalone motion. I would support a separate standalone motion to add 1 seat to cover the additional regional one we did previously.
Okay.
Ryan,
Okay.
I do think they're mutually exclusive, so that motion can be proposed after this one.
Yes.
We can vote on this and then move to that.
Yeah, I just wanted people to know what the other line of thinking is in case that impacted how they wanted to vote on this one. Because you couldn't do both. You couldn't vote yes on this one and yes on the other one and have it worked out. Right?
Yeah, no. So
Okay.
you can still expand this funders to 1 to 3 seats. So, and have that option in the future. It would just say that that would be an option for you on the future. You would still be capped at 15 seats total is what Chris was recommending. So in this season, when we open up membership again, that 1 additional seat would be available to regional government or to another funder if you all decided to up this to 3 seats, and that is at 4 seats right now.
So we could still take action on this and then talk about how we want to utilize it in another motion. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Other comments, questions from the board?
So this is Marshall, and I'm going to acknowledge I was multitasking just for a few minutes with the council member question. And so I'm tracking, I think. So if you can just re-explain what the motion is originally, and then whatever we potentially, if we choose to get another motion on, would be a second motion. I was tracking, but I just want to make sure I'm crystal clear.
Yeah, got a little confusing there for a moment.
Ryan, do you want me to clarify that?
Please.
Okay. So Liz made a motion to increase the funder seats being arranged from 1 to 3. Lisa Glow seconded that motion. The second motion on the table is your cap of total seats on the table or around your board. Currently your cap is at 14, and you can, the secondary motion that we're not taking action on right now from Chris was to add 1 seat to be 15 seats, which means that you could not have every seat category filled. Does that help clarify?
Just real quickly, so no, it helps. What I'm not quite tracking with, and I apologize, is the piece about, so I'm still trying to, maybe I need to move off of, are we saying for the 15th seat, it's open for what category?
So that is the question.
Okay.
You could, so if you decide to have this motion go through, you would have up to a total of 17 seats that you could fill. If you opened up, if you capped that at 15, when you opened up membership, if you decided to open up membership right now, you could either fill that seat with a regional government or a funder, or you could choose to specify it when you open it. That would be a board-driven decision. And yeah, I think I answered all your questions.
Well, you create a new one. So you said something about 17. I thought the motion was to cap it at from 14 to 15.
So if you add this current motion that's on the table of 1 to 3 seats, that would be up to 17 seats across the table. Chris, your motion was to cap at 15 total, 15 seats on the board, even though you had 17 available category seats. Does that make sense? Okay, I see some heads nodding.
It does to me.
Chris, you're on mute if you are talking to us.
I'm sorry. Yeah, 17 is not it is total. I don't see 17 as a real number because all we're saying is there's ranges on these. We have to fit 14 or 15 if we go to 15 with these restrictions. So 17 is not really a number. That's otherwise we just make all the numbers those numbers and go to 17.
Correct. Jackie.
I may be missing something here, but I'm going to speak against capping it. I think if we have an opportunity to add funders to this conversation that we carry on this board, I think we need to take advantage of it. So I felt obligated to at least express why I would vote no on capping it at the 15.
Okay. Technically, by Robert's rules, we cannot have two motions on the table at the same time. So can we take action on this first motion of 1 to 3 seats that Liz proposed and Lisa seconded, and then we can have discussion on this second group because they are mutually exclusive acts. Chris, do you have more?
Yeah, I'm fine with what you're saying. Just to clarify before we go back.
Okay.
Totally remove my motion. I have no problem with that because I think it's confusing things for sure. But just to clarify, 1 to 3 and what we did on the other one, 1 to 4, doesn't change. The current cap is 14.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I want.
Your cap is still 14. You can't actually add seats right now.
So this would not be added. So this would add those as potential spots to fill, but it wouldn't, this motion doesn't push the capacity up, except for the one we just added with the county.
Even the one that you add with the county, we will have a motion after this to discuss your total seats at the board. And you all can debate and discuss that during that motion, but we need to take action on this motion before we move to that discussion.
Got it. Okay. So we had a first from Liz, was yes, and a second from Lisa to add a discrete funder position with 1 to 3 potential board members. We had discussion. Is there, I do see your hand up, Chris. Did you have something else to say before we end? No? Okay. Okay, we've had discussion. I'd ask Katie to please take a roll call.
Latisha Brown Gambino.
Yay.
Jacqueline Campbell.
Yay.
Eric Cole.
Yay.
Elizabeth DaCosta.
Yay.
Marshall Franklin.
Yay.
Todd Gary. Lisa Glow is a yes on chat. Chris Hallett.
Yay.
Rob Podlager.
Yay.
Joan Service.
Yay.
Charles Sullivan.
Yay.
Jackie Taylor.
Yay.
Danielle Wright.
Yay.
Chair Ryan Balch.
Yay.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, excellent. So we have added the geographic positions, we have added some funder positions, and now it sounds like we need to talk about capacity. Is that correct? Okay, I would entertain discussion around capacity. Currently, we are at 14. And we have 14 filled, is that correct, Katie?
Yes, you currently do have 14 filled.
Okay.
I see Eric, your hand is raised, but Tish is also having audio issues. So she wrote, has there been a previous discussion about increasing lived experience seats from 1 to 2? Currently, we have more of an opportunity through the lived experience subcommittee and our race equity work to engage more formally homeless folks in active board participation as trained advocates and policy influencers. I think having more of their voice around the table is critical.
Liz, you have your hand up?
Yeah, and I noticed Eric did too. I would like to propose that we increase our capacity to 17. And the reason for it is because we are lacking private funders as a board. And so although we did have funders sitting in our municipality seats, I feel the voice is much more representative of our municipalities and as opposed to flexible fund sources.
I would second that. That was what I was going to do as well. And I think the comment that was just made about lived experience or additional representation even further underlines our need to have more seats available, because we also know there's a lot of interest, and I think we want to be as inclusive as we can be.
Okay. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Eric.
Can I clarify, Liz, did you make a motion or did you just voice that in a discussion?
I would like to make a motion, we increase the seats to 17. Thank you.
And then Eric, did you second that?
I did, and then I
Okay.
spoke, which may be against the rules.
Nope, it's
It used to
okay.
be.
Okay, well, now that we have a first and a second, let's open it up to discussion. Are there any comments? Chris, you have your hand raised. Yes.
Sorry, I had to step away. So did I hear the motions to raise it from 14 cap to 17?
Yes, sorry.
So if I count up all the maximum numbers, it's 18, correct? So that just gives us one wiggle room across all of those ranges. So otherwise, you're pretty much on the maximum side of every category except for one. That's a floating one if we roll this out. And then secondarily, 17, what's the quorum then? 9? From 7 to 9.
Well, currently quorum is 8. And so we would be upping it to 9.
Question, if we raise the capacity to 17, it doesn't have to be filled to 17 though, correct? So that's a board, that's also a board decision.
Currently, so you can raise capacity. Currently, your charter state, your range right now is 7 to 14. And if you fall below 7, you have to open recruitment. You can change that range, keep it at 7 to 17. And then if you lose a board member or anything like that, previously you were just at 9, we do still open it on a yearly basis, but you can open it more frequently if you feel like there are critical seats that are missing.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Chris?
Yeah, just on that note, so 7 might have been on the low end because of your quorum. Do we need to raise that to 9?
Jackie and Eric, would you entertain a friendly addendum to get the capacity all in one vote? Raising the minimum to 9 and the maximum to 17?
It's Liz and Eric.
What did I say?
Jackie.
I'm sorry, Liz and Eric.
I'll take a stab at it. I'd like to amend the motion to increase capacity from 7 to 9. No, sorry, increase the capacity to 17. And then I'll need help on the why.
Raise the minimum to 9.
There we go. Raise the minimum from 7 to 9.
Second.
Excellent. Further discussion on that? All right, hearing and seeing none. Katie, would you please take a roll call?
Madam Chair, does Chris have his hand up?
I think it's an old hand.
Okay.
Thank you, Jackie. Latisha Brown Gambino said yes in the chat. Jacqueline Campbell.
Yes.
Eric Cole.
Aye.
Liz DaCosta.
Yay.
Marshall Franklin.
Aye.
Lisa Glow said yes in the chat. Chris Hallett.
Aye.
Rob Hoblager.
Yes.
Joan Service.
Yes.
Charles Sullivan.
Yay.
Jackie Taylor.
Aye.
Danielle Wright.
Yay.
Chair Ryan Balch.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Okay, wonderful. Before we leave this topic, somebody brought up, I'm sorry, I did not track it. I think Latisha, was it you? Somebody brought up in our last discussion the opportunity to increase the number of seats for people who are formerly homeless. Is there any, I was going to ask, is there any further discussion about that? And I was also going to say, we would absolutely encourage and promote that in any of our positions, wouldn't we? Is that like kind of a given? That would.
Yeah, so Madam Chair, to give clarity to that, there is currently a preference as you go through the application process of a discretionary point for individuals with lived experience. We do encourage you don't just have to fill that seat of formerly homeless, but we did add that to all of our boards to make sure we have a minimum of one on all of our seats or on all of our committees.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring that piece of information forward, Latisha, because I know you're new to the board and I didn't know if that would change how you felt, or do you still feel like we might want to talk about an actual extra seat just for that?
Chris, I wanted to go to you while your hand was raised.
Chris, is your hand raised on this?
Yeah, it was. I was just going to say, Katie, are you able to tell us how many actually are on the board that have lived experience?
I'm going off memory, so that's probably not always the best thing to do, but I believe right now we have 3. No, 4. We have 4. And Tish did comment in the chat that yes, she would like a designation.
Okay. Okay. Tish, would you like, oh, I'm sorry, Jackie, I see your hand up.
Before we, I think before we make, and this kind of goes to Chris's point, you know, as you have said, Ryan, many of us fill multiple categories. I like that we've defined our formal composition, but before we make additional changes, I would love it if we could lay across the board, across, you know, the continuum of categories, every category that each one of us could fill. To me, that would be an interesting exercise to see, you know, where we may have fuller representation than we think we do or not.
We have done that. We do have that information.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Tish said she agreed. Also, in your strategic planning documents, we have made that available. It is called the board matrix. That is something that we've only made available to board members because there is some sensitive information in there. So you all do have access to that. And I would want consensus from the group before we just share that during a public meeting.
At this point, I don't think it needs to be in the public meeting, but I'm glad, I figured that we had that. I thought we had that at least in the past. I just have to admit, I haven't seen it recently. So thank you for that, Katie.
Latisha, does that satisfy your need right now, or would you like to make a motion?
While she is typing, Eric.
Oh, okay.
Your hand is up.
Someone else's hand is up. Eric, is your hand up?
Oh yeah, okay. Latisha says that satisfies her question. I was just going to get some clarity on where we stood right now. So it's a preference point, a preference around lived experience, but not an actual designated seat. Is that right?
Well, there's one actual designated seat plus a preference for all of our seats.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay. I mean, I'll hold off too, but I would support going to 2, but I'm not going to make the motion. Thanks for raising it. I'm really glad Latisha raised it though.
And I think we'll be seeing more and more from our lived experience subcommittee as well. I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah. That's a strong group. Okay, any other discussion, motions, anything else you want to see on membership at this moment?
Tish said absolutely will. Board, we need direction from you as to, you have now capped it at 17. Do you want to open membership again? Do you want to put out a specific membership request? Currently, the open seats that you now have are 2 additional funders plus 1 regional government body. And so we need, as staff, direction from you on, do you want the membership board group to come together and decide that? Do you all want to decide that as a board? How would you like to move forward?
Interesting options. Board. So I heard, Katie, one option is to have the membership work group reconvene and say what they want to do right now, what they want to put out right now, make a recommendation to the board. Another option is for the board to determine that now.
Yeah, so you can either ask the membership work group to come together and then kind of come back to you at the end of February, or you could make a decision now and we will start that recruitment process and then have options for the work group to come together to review those options.
Okay. Jackie.
As a member of the workshop, I can't speak now. We've been meeting for so long. As a member of the membership committee, I would prefer that the direction come from the full board instead of from us as 3 individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Well, since it will fall on us to do the work, I'm gonna speak up now then. We just went through it. I think we had a lot. I would be in favor of just waiting until the next logical term, September for October. But I understand we don't have a county, and I still think it's worthwhile. It'll be here before we know it, I think. So, and we have summer break and such. So I would be deferring, but that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Chris. Other thoughts?
From my perspective, I would just rely on the 3 individuals who were part of the process previously. My day one, I don't want to add to their workload and have them hate me from the beginning. So we will, I will respect their opinion about this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. I'll just say what I said in chat, which was to ask the working group to look at it in the interest of time, just because, we've been on this topic, which is good. It's all good discussion. But then I certainly respect Jackie's wishes that we resolve it. So I'll go either way.
I have sort of a hybrid suggestion, is that we have the working group reconvene to put the criteria together for the regional position. And get that recruitment out, because we know we're missing that piece. And then at that time, they can discuss whether or not they would like to open additional positions and make a recommendation to the board. I'm seeing some nodding and some thumbs up. Is that acceptable to everyone? Please feel free to say if it isn't. Okay. All right, in the interest of sanity, is that enough direction for you, Amy? You don't need a vote or anything, right?
That's correct, Madam Chair. We are good to go. Thank you.
All right. My brain feels taxed at this point, and I have like 5 other things that have to happen today. So I'm going to wrap up this discussion. Thank you very much. We do have a couple of other agenda items, so I'm going to move on to them. So thank you very much. The next one is the system flow dashboard review. So TJ Reed, the Regional Homelessness Projects Manager at MAG, will provide an overview of the system flow dashboard. We will be reviewing the dashboard the month before the quarterly synthesis is presented to the board. TJ?
Madam Chair and members of the board, we'll make this pretty snappy. Katie, can you pull that dashboard up real quick? So as for our newer members, I'll just share a brief context here. So this is a systems flow dashboard that is based on who is currently active in our system. And then it also goes through our flow. Katie, can you go to the information tab real quick just to show the graphic? So you'll see that on the left side, you'll see our inflow. In the middle, you'll see actively homeless. And then on the right, you'll see our outflow. And so one of the things that is on our process is that this board will look at this data regularly, and then on a quarterly basis, there will be a synthesis or a synopsis of this information as Ryan was sharing earlier. And that will be done at your next meeting in February. You all will receive the system flow synthesis that shares an overview of where we're at with the system. and then we'll be able to be pushed out to external sources as well. Okay, so yeah, if you want to go over to the active side. So I'm just going to share briefly here. Our December numbers showed a slight decrease from before. You'll see our all-time high. I believe that was October, if you can hover that, or August, sorry. And since that all-time high, we've seen some reductions overall. And our family numbers, though, from last month to this month actually saw an increase. So though our singles and overall household figures went down, our family number did go up relatively substantially. It is kind of hard to see as the line is kind of looks pretty steady. But if you go to the flow details page, Katie, real quick, for those who are interested, you do have access to this and can look at this as well. So on this tab, it'll show the total inflow versus outflow. And anytime that you're seeing that like second little chart right there, that one I find the most helpful is anytime you're seeing blue, that means the outflow exceeded the inflow, which is a good thing. And anytime you're seeing orange, our inflow exceeded our outflow, which means we're going to see growth in our population. So overall, we stopped the increase from going in August, but we are still seeing some of the highest numbers that we've seen on record in our community in the last three years. So something to be mindful of, and this information will be really used to supplement that which is coming out of the PIT, which you'll see out of there. But for those newer members, one of the reasons why we're looking at this is we find this a little bit more valid and reliable than some of the PIT data because it is more consistent and that it looks back over a month. So we're doing this every month and it's looking back over a month, and that is a little bit more helpful than picking one particular day out of the year to kind of base your entire perspective of homelessness off of. So the board really agreed a few months back that this is something we want to look at more and highlight more to make sure we're all kind of doing our due diligence here. So with that, I think I'll pitch it back to you, Madam Chair, if there are any questions or comments that we want to add to the slate, and those questions may be able to be go through a deep dive process with our HMIS team if as needed, and we can really try to answer as many questions as possible from the data that is here.
Thanks so much, TJ. I'm super excited about this. So is our role then to just make sure we don't have any questions before we publicly release it quarterly?
Yeah, so basically what will happen, Madam Chair and members of the board, is that this is just a time to look at the dashboard, spend some time with it even outside of the meeting, and bring up any questions that you have or comments like, hey, I noticed that, older adults increased while youth did not. What's up with that? Things of that nature. And then next month in your meeting, you'll actually get a draft prior to it being sent out to the public of the system flow synthesis. And at that point, the board will be there to effectively approve it to be pushed out. And then that way we can talk through messaging and anything else that is important for you all to grasp onto before you're getting questions yourselves about it.
Okay, so this will be the first one we're actually pushing out. The last time we saw it, we were sort of approving form, correct? And the things we wanted to see in it. So now, is this the time between this month and next month that we should actually look at it and ask questions so that next month we can be having a vote?
Well, this time we'll be really just looking at the dashboard and seeing if there are any questions you have about the numbers themselves. Then prior to next month, you'll get the actual kind of like a PDF draft of what that looks like. And then at that point, obviously, you can kind of review what it actually looks like, if there are any questions, comments, things prior to the meeting. And then in the meeting, that will be kind of the final discussion if there's any like changes that need to be made before it gets pushed out and the board wants that, or if the board just is good to approve and go public with it at that point.
Okay. Questions from the board, comments? It's a lot of information.
Madam Chair, TJ, I also want to share that the committee is reviewing this on a monthly basis, and so is the data subcommittee. So that is something like you have a bunch of other folks looking at this data monthly, but just didn't want you'd only see the quarterly dashboard and not see anything between those quarters.
Okay, got it. So this is something we should expect then regularly. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
to one of our discussions in strategic planning, Katie, that's really good to hear. I love that that's going on multiple levels. So thank you for sharing that with us.
And one point of feedback actually that we got, if you go back to the active overview tab, you'll see that the number of individuals within families has been added. Hey, Katie, can you go back to the active overview tab? So if you hover over when you're looking at it, you'll see actually the number of persons within that, because sometimes, and we got this feedback from our family providers, that sometimes it can be a little bit deceiving when you're looking at it. I was like, oh, families don't actually make up that much of our population. It's only 649. But we just need to keep in mind that those are households, and in that there are over 2,400 individuals, and that's children, head of households, spouses, etc. So that was good feedback, and I figured, Jackie, you'd be interested in hearing that as well.
Thanks, TJ. You've got that one right.
And I might even suggest that we put it as persons because the other ones are as persons, and then put in the narrative the number of households it is, so that person-wise it's looking comparable. It's just a thought, but I know this is always a point of contention, because if you aren't looking deeply, like someone new to the information might not. So that's just a thought. But so will we have access to this information so that when we can spend more time and dig into it, we can?
Yeah, that's right, Madam Chair.
Okay.
The link is available to all. And then also what I'll mention to your point in question, household sizes are actually different than the person count for singles as well. And Katie, if you hover over that, there are people who double up, and there are couples. They're just adult households versus households with children. And so that is a good point that you bring up, but I will say that does happen on the other side as well. It's simply just because they're, people living.
So if we flip the script, we'd want to flip the script on all three and talk about persons and then put households in the narrative if we wanted to flip the script. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is also in your strategic planning documents in that folder I shared with you. So if you look in your overview, this is one of the links that I'll attach, and it'll take you right to this dashboard.
Fantastic. I encourage everyone to spend a little time with this if you can. Questions, comments?
Madam Chair, we do have a comment from the audience.
Thank you. Please go ahead and take it.
Amy, you should be allowed to talk.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. Amy Schwabenlinder. As the messaging around this moves forward, I think it's important to look at the outflow number and talk about the number of outflow due to inactive status, and that become a conversation at the board committee and subcommittees, because it's, outflow isn't necessarily great if it just means that we lost engagement with people that are unsheltered. But this is beautiful. I'm so glad to see data in Tableau. So that's all.
Thank you so much, Amy. Is that something we can ask the data subcommittee to think about?
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Amy, I think that's a great comment, and absolutely, I think this has been an item that we've looked at in the past as well, just as, outflow does not just necessarily mean good, in that, if just you're getting a spike of people that you don't know where they're going out of the system, that's not a great thing. So absolutely, I think we can bring that up, and probably not just the data subcommittee, but perhaps the committee as well, and getting feedback from providers on any insights into that. I mean, even from this board, I think we have some key providers on with, all those who represent are seeing quite a bit of clients. And so providing some perspective on that might be nice from them as well.
Yeah, and then we'll know if it's something that needs to be dived into a little bit. further. I love that. Thank you. All right. In the interest in time, thanks again, TJ. I'm going to move us on to the next item, which is an update on the 2022 point in time homeless count. So Nikki Stevens, our regional homeless program manager, will provide a brief recap of the count which took place last Tuesday. Nikki.
Hello, Madam Chair and members of the board. Just to give you a quick update, on January 25th, all the cities and towns from across Maricopa County participated in the annual point in time count. As many of you know, last year, MAG received a waiver from HUD. But this year we pushed forward and did conduct the count. This included hundreds of volunteers from nonprofits, businesses, and community members. The coordination efforts took, close to 6 months of planning. This year's count was completely paperless, with people using the mobile app that was developed by MAG's Regional Analytics Division. All the surveys and data are currently being reviewed to ensure the most accurate information, and we're hoping for the data to be released sometime in February, probably towards the end of February. But I do want to just thank many of you who are on this call right now, or who are watching via YouTube, for volunteering that morning. I know it was cold. I know it was challenged with COVID, and we are so appreciative of all the volunteers that came out and took their time to support these efforts that are so important to the funding that comes into our community from HUD. So just counting so far, what I'm getting back from the coordinators, we've had so far over 400 volunteers and counting, over 26 nonprofit organizations and counting. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart and from MAG's perspective. And I'm willing to take any questions anyone may have.
Thank you, Nikki, for coordinating it. I know that our team felt really well supported. So I'm sure that goes out around the region. One question is, would you like each jurisdiction to send you photos, any news media video they may have had? Would that be helpful to keep, or?
Yes, it would be helpful, just as long as we don't have photos of the, actually the individuals being surveyed. But yes, please send us photos of your teams, photos out in the, the streets, any, candid shots that you may have, or any media coverage. Yes. Thank you, Ryan, for asking.
Okay. Yes, if everyone could just get that stuff over to MAG, that would be great. Okay, thank you so much for all your hard work on that. And I'm really looking forward, of course, for the rest of you who belong to municipalities, the question is, when will we see the data? When will we see the data? So I'm glad to hear a February date. That sounds great.
Yeah, I think it's a lot quicker turnaround since it's completely paperless. So going through it right now. So we're hoping to get that out as soon as possible. But thank you.
Very much appreciate that. All right. Next item. Do any board members have anything for action or discussion for future meetings? All right. We have plenty for you coming up. And now we move on to comments from the board. So is there anyone on the board that would like to make any announcements about events or any other activities you would like to highlight?
Where is it? Hi, this is Joan.
I
want to highlight that we have rescheduled the Maricopa stand down, and it will be on Thursday, March 17th at the Veterans. Actually, not even at the Coliseum, it'll be at the State Fairgrounds. So we'll be utilizing the commercial exhibit building with its tall ceilings and open airflow and parking lot. It will be a one-day event. And we're really gonna kind of target our services to, just real, access to housing, employment, and healthcare. And thanks to our partners at HSU, because they have just been rocking it for us. So kudos to them too.
Awesome. Thank you, Joan. Okay. Anybody else? All right. I'm just looking around one more time. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Who was that?
That was Jacqueline with US Vets. I was regarding the stand down, are they accepting applications for providers at this time?
Yes, yes, it should be available on our website. If it is not, we're already counting on US Vets to be there, so we don't even need to worry about submitting an application. But you can just drop me an email at joan@azhousingcoalition.org.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I think Danielle, you have your hand up?
Yes, hi. The coalition is hosting a virtual walk, and it's called Moving to End Violence. And it is happening on March 26th through the 27th, which is leading us into April, which is Sexual Violence Awareness Month. Anyone interested can go to azmag.gov and register. All programs that register will share in the profit from that event.
That's neat. Thank you, Danielle, for sharing that. Chris.
Yes, also April is Diversity Month. So we're also trying to do a lot here around that and in addition to Black History Month next month here. But I don't know if it belongs here or on request for future items, but when Joan was speaking earlier in the meeting and then just a moment ago, I don't know if it's an agenda item where we can do we meet monthly. Is there an opportunity between now and the next month for advocacy that we can go out and get out there? Legislative right now is hot. And I think once you know what these bills are, there's an opportunity for all of us to put that out. I don't know if it's from a board level. So I do think maybe future or standing agenda item is an advocacy opportunities between meetings.
I will say to that point, great point. I'm happy to provide. We typically, we have a policy committee meeting that meets every other Friday. It's for members only, and we do provide weekly information about bills being heard to that policy committee meeting or to that policy committee group. And we provide updates to the COC committee. And then, as I mentioned at the start, there will, as you said, Chris, there's bills that are kind of starting to really take off. We will be submitting out action alerts to all of our contact lists, not just to our members, to have them take action on bills that we're following, that we're concerned about.
Thank you, Joan. Jackie.
Yes, and to that point, I'd recommend that all of us be signed up on azmag.gov to weigh in remotely if we're not able to get down to the Capitol to be present. And I'm listening, Joan, to the amazing work that the coalition does. I don't think personally I sing your praises enough, but I am really so grateful for the advocacy efforts that you bring to our community. The stand down work is exemplary. Kudos to you all. And as a board members, if we're not members of the coalition, I'm not going to be guilt inducing, but I think that's strongly something we should give some consideration to. So that's my plug for the coalition, and kudos to you and your team.
Well, all we're trying to do is be representative of you all. So it's all collective effort, and it's all representative of you. So thank you.
Eric posted the links for both ACES-DV and the Housing Coalition, which I will include in the notes. Lisa Glow commented, Wildfire has an eviction bill that they will need help on, and it will benefit us by helping our clients with evictions to clear them up easier. Where do we convey this info on the COC? Lisa, if you send me a write-up on that, or Joan, if you know about this, I can get that out to both the board after this meeting and also update the committee in their legislative update.
Happy to help with that.
All right, Jackie, is that an old hand or a new hand? It's an old hand.
Going down.
Okay. All right. I don't see any other hands. And I want to let you all go, but before we do that, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that TJ would be leaving MAG, not us, but be leaving MAG, and he's going on to new and wonderful things at Maricopa County. So we look forward to seeing you in that role, TJ. But I just want to thank you on behalf of myself, and I will speak for board members, but they are certainly willing to speak for themselves, as well as just all of the work that you've done for us in the last year. And you've really brought a whole new level, I think, to the board in terms of utilizing data and really driving us forward. And I so appreciate that. And I know that we will use that momentum to keep moving in that direction. So thank you very much. Again, I'm really glad to see you moving into the role at the county and see what you have to bring to the table in that role. So thank you. Is there anyone else on the board that would like to comment? I don't know. What is your last day, TJ?
My last day will be on the 11th.
Okay. So it's happening fast. So.
He means June 11th, just so you know.
Oh, June 11th. Nah.
Yep. We're keeping him till June 11th at least.
Right.
Wishful thinking.
Yeah, I'm sure the county is willing to wait that long. Yeah.
That's
All right,
2023.
Yeah. So TJ, it's not goodbye. It's till we see you again in your new role. But thanks for everything you've done. It's been remarkable. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. You have big shoes to fill over there, TJ, but I'm certain you're up to the task.
And Madam Chair, if I may, just offer that we wish TJ well. He's been an important member of the team, and we look forward to working with him in his new capacity over at Maricopa County. So we consider that partnership as being broadened, not ending. So thank you, TJ, for all of your service.
We just share people around a little, that's all. All right, so thank you, TJ. And thank you, board members, for sticking with us today. It was a long meeting, but I think we got a lot done. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Everyone.
Have a good day.